Well, the word of the day is curiosity. Where has your curiosity taken you? Well, today's guest, his curiosity has taken him all over the world. He's got some fun stories. But before we get into all that, of course, I got a couple things I want to throw at you. First and foremost, Live Rishi. These guys make high-quality CBD product. I've been using that stuff for a long time, long before the show even started, and they've been helping me out, so let's help them out. You get good product in return. My personal favorite is the Rishi Rub. You got some sore joints and muscles. Check it out, liverishi.com. Use the code word TABLE50, looking at 50% off your entire order. Again, liverishi.com. Use the code word TABLE50. And then my website, of course, brawpodcast.com. Would love for you to jump over there. Join me there, and Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff like you normally hear. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or seven. But what you're listening to today is a full-length episode. It's about an hour long, and I have a guest or two on. Today is just one. Sometimes I have a couple, and we get into some great conversation. I do not like to interview people. I am not a good interviewer, but I love having good conversation. And boy, do we have one today. And then on opposite weeks is about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little longer, and I just rant and rave and yell at the microphone, whatever's on my heart and my mind. I love doing those, and I'm getting good feedback. Check those out. So there's two different types, and again, everything you want to know about the show is over on my website, brawpodcast.com. All right, man, we're going to get into this. Harry, this dude is curious as all get out, and it has taken him to some crazy places. He's got an awesome podcast. He's a fellow poker player, and he's also an uber talented filmmaker, and he loves doing documentaries. We get into a lot of different, topics and conversations like we normally do, and that's what I love about this show and meeting new people like Harry. He's working on a new documentary, and the stories that he has about that, woo, man, I'm going to let him tell you all about it. Let's get to it. It is a passion, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But I believe I'm wholeheartedly believe that you only have so much units of energy every day to use. Mm-hmm. Okay, so say you can come up with your own fucking number, dude. I don't care. But say like you have 10 units of energy. Mm-hmm. Now, where do I want to spend that? Right? I'm not going to spend it trolling people online and fucking getting all worked up and burning my energy about that, or taking my garbage out and the can tips over and the garbage spills all over the place. I'm going to get all upset about that. No, dude, there's no reason to burn calories worrying about something you can't fucking figure out or you can't change, right? But I do like to spend those energies on something like this, because now I get a positive ROI. I might spend 2 units of energy doing this, but I get back 3.
Yeah.
Because it powers me, right? Sit here and bullshit with you and fuck, dude, I would have never even known you ever existed unless it wasn't for the show.
I mean, I'm kind of this in terms of that unit. I mean, like, especially if I get something that I'm really passionate about, any sort of kind of journalism stuff that I've done, I can get like obsessive almost in terms of like I can be like absolutely knackered throughout a day, and then if I've got a project that I'm working on, I've got whole nights where I've not slept and I've just like drilled work or whatever, because it's almost like like solar power.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. But there are people out there that feel that way about trolling people on the internet and arguing with them.
Oh God, yeah.
There's plenty of those. But the thing is, there's always been those people. They just have a voice now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years ago, that same person bitching that you see online, just tearing you up in your comments, was doing the same thing, but nobody heard. He or she didn't have anywhere to put it.
Yeah.
So the only people that heard it were the people around the water cooler, or God, feels so bad for their spouse, right? Spouse is just fucking tearing them up. But yeah, anyway, we've been recording, but my disclaimer is now everything you say now is on the internet.
That's all good with me. I'm an open book.
I was going to say, you're all over the fucking internet.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, what the hell got you going on all this business? You got to have, speaking of passion, dude, you got to have some kind of passion for all this craziness that you're talking about on your show.
Oh, God, I mean, like, so I'm 22, although I look a bit older. I'm a bit hairier and fatter. But I'm 22.
Damn, dude, I got underwear older than you. Damn, dude, 22. Jeez.
So I realized my kind of vocation in life when I was like 15. I kind of clicked that I wanted to be a journalist. And I used to, going way back, I used to write like just sports articles. I used to write for some website called the Coaching Network, very briefly, and I was 15, and it was basically they were using like 15-year-olds to write about sport to kind of get free writers, I guess, and get content out. And then one day the website just disappeared, and apparently the fella had been robbing images of Google, so he got sued to shit, basically. So then my 15-year-old just like moved everything over, and then my dad was like, "Oh, why don't you like interview people?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not." I was always quite socially awkward in terms of, I was quite gregarious with people and that kind of stuff. But in terms of like, I guess any sort of interview, that always seemed quite, I don't know, almost quite intimidating.
So you were in the interview, you felt intimidated. So like if I was interviewing you, you would feel intimidated.
More so the fact of me as an interviewer when I was about 15, the idea of having to go, because you've got to have this kind of almost stature behind you for someone to, one, trust you, and then also respect you as an interviewer on the other side of things. And I was interviewing sports people originally at the start who were all media trained. Most of them were like football, ex-football players or whatever, like, soccer.
So I was going to say, and they're confident as fuck because they're a professional sports they're a professional athlete.
Yeah. And they get like, the thing is with 15, 16-year-old lads who want to get into journalism, every single one of them wants to do sport. In this country, like, and the ones that don't normally kind of break off and do very, like, obviously there's the people who do sport who do fantastic, and I know I'm friends with a lot of them. Sport's not really, I like to separate my kind of, any sort of journalism with sport now, for the fact that I enjoy sport a lot, and I know for a fact I'd hate sport quite a bit if I had to like be a journalist consistently with it. But yeah, that was always so intimidating having to go, especially, I support Wigan, which is like a small like football team in the UK. But obviously, because it's like a small local team, you idolize these players that have done stuff for your club because it's also tight knit. So, but they're also really accessible because they're only like known to Wigan fans. So I'd be in positions where I'd like speak to someone who was like the legend of, I remember interviewing a man called Emerson Boyce, who was like our captain when we won our only basically major trophy. And I just looked at this man like he was like a god amongst men. Like I was stood next to him, and it just didn't feel, I was like 15, I must be about 16 at the time. It didn't feel right that I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think as you get through, again, like I'm 22 now, I feel very comfortable. I don't think there's anyone I could speak to, maybe bar kind of journalistic influences, that I'd be like starstruck by. Yeah,
be totally fanboying on them.
Yeah, but back then, leveled me.
Oh yeah, sure. I had a guy, one of my favorite authors, Mark Tufo, and it's an older episode, and I've been in sales and in customer service my whole life, so I look for the quick no. Dude, do you want to do this? And they go, no, I'm on. Next, right? So I'm used to being told no all the time. No big deal. You tell me no problem. Well, that being said, I don't have a problem asking anybody anything because the answer is always no if you don't ask, right?
Absolutely.
So I asked this guy, Mark Tufo, and he jumped right on it. Oh, dude, come to find out, he's a super nice guy. And I was totally fanboying on him with my episode. I was like, this is not a conversation or interview. This is me going, ooh, wow, this is Mark, hey, buddy. And it was back when I first started podcast, and I didn't have I still don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. And but he took it with stride, and I got so much fucking negative feedback in the comments and all that, and that was the first episode that I just got really blown up with negative comments.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I get a couple here and there, just people fucking being tough keyboard tough guys. They'd never say that to you to your face.
Absolutely.
And so I said to my wife, I come on, and I go, oh man, dude, after this one, he just wrecked it, and she comes over and gives me a hug and a kiss and goes, congratulations. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, all right. You tend to make it to a certain level when you just start getting fucking destroyed by the comments,
Yeah, you don't get any hate if you're not even if you're not moderately successful.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just something like an interview like that. People are only going to want to criticize if you're worthy of criticism in some way. Like if you've got to a level there where people are bothered about you.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've been quite lucky, especially with the kind of crop of friends I've had like through secondary school. Like, and a lot of, especially like a lot of people that I've just not spoken to in ages will always pop up me ultra supportive. But I mean, I've had. I've never had maybe the most overwhelmingly negative kind of response I've had was I interviewed the fella who solved the Tupac and Biggie murders.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and that was there was a lot of people who think that he's full of shit. And I mean, to be fair, I probably wasn't prepared enough for that. He was a very intense person because he's obviously very kind of media trained. And I was quite early, I guess, into my kind of podcasting and stuff like that. And a lot of people, it's like, you're just a shill to they're perpetrating kind of, conspiracies about who really killed Biggie and stuff like that.
I was going to say that, and that's not a small topic either. I mean,
the worst, I'd say the worst one. I mean, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me, or one of, when I was 16. So, like I said before, I used to interview like sports people. And then I can't even remember. I've always been kind of fascinated in maybe like the taboo or maybe the kind of weird kind of fringe stuff in society. And I interviewed a woman called Laura Johnston Cole, who was a survivor of Jonestown.
Oh, no shit.
That was when I was 16. And it's literally in between like interviews I'd done with like boxers. And like, it's just so, I played football. And then it's like this woman who like, had no right really to give me her time to speak to me. Do you know what I mean? Like as a 16-year-old, I had no idea how I'd record it. Like I'd never really done a podcast before. And I was like, and I basically just spoke to her. And like looking back, if you ever listen to it, I'm so out of my depth in terms of such a deep topic. Like I've barely got my kind of mind around the world as is anyway at the age of 16, let alone this woman's world who, I mean, I guess for anyone who doesn't know Jonestown, 918 people committed mass suicide.
Yeah.
And they were all her friends and all of her family. And it wasn't like she knew it was going to happen and defected. Like she was so high up in the group in Jonestown that she was sent out to do like PR in Georgetown, which is the capital, when it happened. Like she would have been
there.
Yeah, God, yeah, because she was like zealous about it. And she cried to me on this call or whatever. And I mean, like that's completely, that one moment has completely changed the trajectory of where I've gone journalistically. Because otherwise I'd be sat here going like, oh yeah, I met a boxer the other week.
Yeah.
Now I'd be like, stuff that I find interesting or whatever. But yeah, no, the fact that she gave time to someone who probably while she was doing it, she knew that, and she was always so open and so kind of, accommodating with me as the interviewer, which normally it's meant to be the other way around, but she knew that I was like, in year 11 in kind of,
right.
In the UK.
Well, that just tells so much about her character.
Absolutely.
There's been a couple in the early days too that I've been on somebody else's show or somebody's come on mine, And I'm so out of depth, man. I'm like, hey, dude, I was backpedaling and I listen to them once in a while because what I do now, I have just so much content, especially, with video and all that. I go back and make YouTube shorts and then I pile them on. And I go back and listen to some of these and I'm like, what the okay, well, hey, man, that's what we're here to do is get better and keep, onward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but man, I love a good cult story.
So do I. I think that's why I've fallen into this kind of niche.
You're right. So I had a couple dudes on from California. If you want, I'll hook you up with them.
I mean, I've not even heard what they're about, and I'd like.
Yeah, these two guys, man. They're great, dude. I love these two guys. They're just so out there, and they were this close to joining a cult.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. We laughed so fucking hard because he's like, the one guy's like, yeah, this girl invited me to dinner and something was weird about it. Wait a minute, was she wearing a sundress and have a bonnet and hairy armpits? He's like, well, we all laugh. And I'm like, then you show up and there's all these people. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude, you didn't see the signs? Yeah, he was just looking to get his dick wet, dude. So it's all good. I go, I can't be mad at you for that, dude. I can't. But, and they do such a great, the way they tell it is amazing. Yeah. So I don't want to blow it up. I'll put the link to my episode in here and I'll do an intro. They got a great podcast too. And that's how we got hooked up. Theirs is called, well, that fucked me up. and it's about overcoming, things that people you run into. Right.
Oh, I thought it was just about
about the cult? No. And so I reached out to them. I think it was through Matchmaker too. And I was paralyzed like 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, made a full recovery and just kicking ass from here and doing everything. But so that's how we got connected. And then when I was on their show, they're like, yeah, we got this story about a cult. And I'm like, oh, dude, you got to come on. I love a good cult story. And I just don't understand. I guess it always like, how do you get to that point?
It's what I've found. I mean, like funny enough, I've got a journalist friend of mine and she got in touch with me. She was looking into kind of cults or whatever. And she got in touch with me as the kind of cult expert that she knew, which I don't see myself as that, but I mean, like I've had enough kind of run-ins with kind of religious sects and stuff. The kind of thing that I've seen is that these people are often, and not always, and not like it's not exclusive, but a lot of them are kind of outcasted in some way, and then they found this kind of solitude in a group that reaffirms their beliefs, but then also showers them with love. And then where it starts to get dangerous is when there is someone at the top of it who then profits, normally through sex half the time.
I was just going to say, he sleeps with everybody's wife and steals all your money, dude.
Yeah, well, it's like Mormonism. I mean, like, because I spent the year in Oklahoma last year, and I met some Mormon people who I didn't know were Mormon. They were all lovely people, but it's something that I never kind of got my head around because.
No, neither.
I mean, I grew up being from the part of the country I'm from. I grew up Catholic, but like not practicing Catholic, and I don't have any religion now.
Nah, same here. Here's a cult. Here's a funny story. I was between jobs. I was waiting for my new job to start, my new career. And I'm not one to sit around, man. I just I got to be going 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I'll start climbing the wall. So FedEx, right? The delivery.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to their warehouse and got a job unloading trucks. So the way FedEx works, and I've told this story before, I know, but there's a lot of people that haven't heard it. Inside a FedEx tractor trailer, there's almost like it's like a conveyor belt in the middle of it that's on the rollers. You know how like you can put a box on the thing in the rollers? And then what they do is they back up into the warehouse at an angle. And then another belt comes out to the tractor, to the trailer. And a guy gets on each side and you just start throwing these boxes in the middle and they go into the warehouse, right? So this guy on my right, we're throwing boxes and we're just bullshitting. And you ever hear of Amway, the marketing level? Okay, so Amway is this company years and years ago that they sold like household appliances or household chemicals, like to clean your house and do all that stuff. And multi-level marketing scheme, right?
Oh yeah, like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And
they're just real famous around here. Like if you just say, hey, and they're the butt of a bunch of jokes, oh, that's like Amway and that kind of thing. So I see these Amway boxes, like all of a sudden there's this wall of them and I'm like, oh shit, man, I ain't seen these in 20 years. And I turned and looked at the guy. I go, man, look at this Amway, the most successful marketing level scheme that I know about, and he didn't even miss a beat, dude. He'd thrown boxes. He goes, unless you don't consider Christianity. And I totally stopped and I was like looking at him and he didn't even look back at me or none. He just kept right on working. And I was like, wow, my wheels are spinning now. Holy shit. So if you look at it that way, and I have my own thoughts about and my own thing with every type of religion. I feel that it's the same as, well, I mean, what's the difference between a cult and a religion? Numbers.
Yeah. It's a right? Gray area.
Very gray, right? So I love to play poker.
I do too.
Oh, nice. We got to get into that. And then, so I always say that a religion is the same as my poker game. Mm-hmm. It's a group of people that sit together that have the common interest and camaraderie as ever, we have a common thing going. Mm-hmm. Same fucking thing. And a lady goes, no, this is different. I'm like, well, if you break it down, it's the same. And she's like, no, because now there's a higher power. They get into all that, but it's that's why I don't like to talk about politics and religion on my show, because now it'll be fucking down the road for an hour on that. But cults, though, let's get back to cults, because
cults are safe.
Yeah. Everybody likes to hear about a cult, right? And back like in, I would have to go to meetings and stuff when I had my business, like to network, right? And meet other people. And when you're on panels and speaking panels and stuff, they always ask you corny questions. And they say, this one that I used to get them all the time. They'd say, hey, if you could sit down for 30 minutes, dead or alive, who would you sit down with and talk with? And instantly I'd go, Hitler. And everybody would be like, oh, I'd remark and I go, I'm not saying he's not evil and an asshole. I'm not saying that. You asked me who I would sit down with. It's not like because I like the guy. I think he's an outstanding citizen. Of course he's not. He's a fucking asshole. But I want to know how he manipulated an entire country to do that kind of shit. Because if you could do that in business, how far would you get?
I mean,
and they're looking at me the same way you're looking at me. But now, it's all, we could go on to that, but cults, the reason I tell that story is because now you have me going around, if I'm making a cult going, hey, buddy, this is what I got going on. It's the same thing Hitler did, but it's a smaller scale, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's certainly on the kind of manipulation. I mean, I'm not going to start comparing. You get into very choppy waters, the National Socialists, but in terms of that kind of mind manipulation. So something, relating back to Jonestown, something Jim Jones did. He used to do things called White Nights, where he would get people up in the middle of the night with sirens, and each night was different. Sometimes he'd have armed militia men there with him, and other times it'd be like, oh, we're under attack or whatever. And he'd basically go, you've all got to drink this poison, and everyone would be made to drink it, and then he'd reveal afterwards that it was a fake. and then they'd all go to bed. So then by the time that it came up to when they actually happened, when everyone drank the cyanide or whatever, was kind of like pushed to drink the cyanide or whatever, it was all muscle memory.
Get the fuck out of here. No way, dude. I didn't know that.
Yeah, not many people do.
And I've heard multiple podcasts because, like, I'm on the road a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen to Audible books and podcasts. I've heard multiple podcasts talk about Jamestown.
Mm.
And I've never heard that.
Yeah, I think it was called White Night. I mean, it's been a while since I researched. I mean, I was very fortunate to, after I'd spoken to Laura Johnson Cole, I was kind of welcomed in a bit by the other. There's like an online community of like people who are family members of people who died and stuff like that. They've got lots and lots of reading. They're a very active and very passionate kind of group of people. But yeah, no, it was that's a big. I mean, there's another thing of the fact that like the death tape, it's a really harrowing listen. And again, I listened to all of it at the age of 16 because I thought that was the best preparation.
Well, no wonder you're fucked up, dude.
I know. But it's a full recording of an audio recording of the events that took place, basically.
And do you hear people like screaming and moaning and like?
So a lot of people, you do. One woman was forcibly injected, and then all of the kids were as well. One woman was like there's no doubt about it. That woman was murdered, and then everyone else kind of takes it. But then obviously there's the kind of noises and stuff like that. I mean, it's really, really harrowing. I wouldn't recommend anyone listen to it. I guess it's there as a kind of historical.
Now there's going to be a ton of people looking for that audio, dude.
I mean, the thing that got me into it was kind of morbid curiosity, but yeah, no, it's really kind of harrowing or whatever. But I mean, I'm of the mindset that, relating to what you were saying about kind of mind manipulation, I mean, like, to me, that's it's 917 or whatever the number was, murders and one suicide, because the only person that really chose to kill themselves in that situation is Jim Jones. And he brainwashed everyone else into doing it in the same way that the Heaven's Gate cult that was in California.
Oh, that's a good one, Matt. Yeah, not a good one, but that's a good conversation if you want to talk about cults. But going back to Jamestown, so my illusion or the information that I've consumed, I thought he was up there screaming and hollering and telling everybody that you are going to drink this poison and you are going to die.
But yeah, so he did. So I mean, like the kind of White Knights thing was almost like getting people kind of in the kind of subvert.
And they're like, this is just a massive white night with 900 people.
I think there was more. So the reason that the actual suicide took place, or the massacre, or whatever you want to call it, was the governor from California or the mayor or something came over to Jonestown and was killed by militiamen.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he was shot right over by the plane or something on the runway. Yeah.
So, and then they in the kind of tape, Jim Jones talks about being paranoid that the CIA, I think, were going to crash a plane into Jonestown and kill everyone anyway. And then people can be heard saying like, "Oh, what about Russia?" Because obviously the reason they were there in the first place was that they were a socialist agricultural commune in a time of Red Scare in the US where they felt outcasted, which is why they all kind of banded together in the first place.
And went down south in the jungle, right? I mean, that was kind of the whole idea.
In Guyana, I think Guyana was a socialist country at the time anyway, so they were basically seeking refuge, which is why Laura was out doing PR, because they really wanted to be a part of Guyana as a country, because they shared their kind of political views with them. The Jim Jones basically says to everyone that if you didn't want to take it, I imagine you would have been like that woman. They would have forced people to take it anyway. I mean, they killed all the dogs as well.
Yeah, I knew that. Man, like when you say forced, like the kids, are we talking like held them down and poured it in their mouth, or like injected him, or what?
Yeah, I think injections. I'd have to be. I mean, like, full disclosure, I've not looked at it in a while, so it's. But like, I
mean, either way, it's fucking horrible, right?
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes, I mean, like, so full circle at the age of 15, 16, having to speak to that woman is a bit heavy.
A little bit for your brain. Your brain is going, what?
Yeah, you mature very quickly having to kind of speak to.
I just want to play. I just want to play football and look at naked girls, and this lady's talking about killing people. But damn, dude. I mean, and then I guess it would make sense, because if you take 900 people and you haven't preconditioned them, there's no way that that's gonna. I mean, that would be crazy. That all 918 or whatever, we'll just say 900, easier to talk about. 900. There's going to be somebody in the crowd going, wait a minute, what are we doing?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's.
But then with the white knight thing that you're talking about, and just to be clear, up until then, periodically, people would come in and he'd be like, drink this. And he would tell them that it's poison.
Yeah.
And they would.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they would wake up. He'd say, "Drink this. It's poison. The world's ending." Whatever fucking narrative he wanted to spew out at the time, I'd imagine. They'd drink it, and he's like, gotcha. Ooh, joke's on you."
Basically, yeah, like and again, like, you know, full disclosure, obviously it's a very sensitive thing, and I'm not.
Yeah, sure. No, I
like from what I remember, it was that. They blast the sirens off and everyone would have to line up. Sometimes, I mean, the White Knights would be, I think that they would just have to stand there for ages. And it was always like a kind of subservience thing and a kind of brainwashing thing. But I mean, the mad thing was that when the governor from California came over, like only like a handful of people left with him. Most people were happy to stay. And it wasn't that they were being kept against their will or whatever. Most people were content with being in this agricultural commune because they all had the same views and stuff like that. And obviously there was this kind of messed up element with Jim Jones being a very very troubled man. But people were happy to stay, which is why it's mental why he got so paranoid. I mean, he was using a lot of drugs at the time and stuff like that. So he got so paranoid that he was like, oh, they're going to crash a plane into us. We've got to all die. The only way.
So that was his final narrative, right? That, okay, so this CIA lady came down to investigate and to prove we're here and what's going on, and they're going to come and take us. We might as well go on our own terms.
Basically, they thought that because they've now killed Jim Jones thought that because they'd now killed like a high-ranking kind of politician, that that the government were on to them and stuff like that, and that they were gonna. Because they were trying to, there was a party of people who were in the Soviet Union at the time from Jonestown who were trying to kind of build a relationship or whatever with people in the Soviet Union. I think when they got back after Jonestown had happened, a lot of them committed suicide out of the party that went because obviously all their friends had now died. It was just pure kind of drug-fueled paranoia from Jim Jones at that point. It meant that he was just deteriorating. But I mean, when he set up the group, when he set up the kind of commune at the start, he was, I can't remember the fella's name, but he was like a kind of a massive evangelical preacher that he was speaking to, and he was learning kind of tips, you know, like those kind of people that nowadays, I guess, I mean, when I spent time in Oklahoma, those people who speak to loads of people on stage or whatever, it's like, oh, you know, and they touch you on the head and you start like shaking. Like those, and then a lot of it was like those kind of techniques as well that he was learning from, obviously back in like the 50s and stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's a very rough kind of rundown.
Yeah.
I get it,
because I mean, the last one that I listened to, it was like a 7-part series and they're 90 minutes each. I mean, so there's so much to unpack, but what's going to happen now, dude? Somebody's going to take a clip of you and just fucking wreck you because you're like, look at this guy. He didn't know anything about Jonestown.
I hope I've done a good account because I mean, like I say, the people who I spoke to, you know, who are kind of keeping the memories of the people who of the victims of that horrible tragedy alive have been they're so kind of welcoming to people really kind of understanding that, I guess, because it comes with such a morbid curiosity, and people are very happy to kind of turn up to these kind of things. And the same with the kind of Heaven's Gate thing, and I guess gawk at the level of death, and then that's it, almost like a kind of entertainment thing.
Right.
And understandably as well, people can't be expected to devote loads of time understanding stuff that is sad, because people.
Right. But the other thing too is the true crime or the cult, I think cult stuff lands in the true crime category,
Yeah,
right?
kind of, yeah.
Okay. I mean, humans have always been fascinated with true crime and crazy stuff like we're talking about. And I don't know if they're scratching at their own mortality, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking at that and their own fragile, or I don't know why people get into the morbid stuff like that. I've never talked to anybody that gave me 4 sentences that I went, I understand why.
Well, I mean, it's the reason that I'm in in the career path that I'm on, is because I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, my ultimate goal is to make documentaries full time, kind of covering. I don't want to pigeonhole myself, but I mean, like, that stuff always kind of interests me, and that kind of, especially kind of fringe groups in society, and this weird taboo of trying to understand the kind of human nature and why. That's why religion fascinates me so much. It's because it's like people get boxed up into these beliefs that are, however, so old. And then, I spoke to 2 of the people who were left behind, but on the Heaven's Gate cult, who still firmly believe in they're like the kind of Earth communication team or whatever they're called. They still firmly believe in the fact that they're aliens, or their friends are aliens. They all went on a UFO with Jesus to heaven.
And their bodies.
And obviously it sounds ridiculous or whatever. And obviously I don't believe in any religion, but who's to say that their religion doesn't have as much validity as any other belief?
No, 100%, dude. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the narrative that I use to kind of take it to an extreme to get the point across. I was talking to a guy, and we're talking about a little bit of religion and what you believe in and what makes you feel good, what makes you feel comfortable, right? Because nobody knows what happens when we just go away, right? So whatever makes you feel good, fuck it, right on, dude. Mm-hmm. But don't tell me that I'm wrong if I don't believe in it, right? That's where I tend to get a little squirrely.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, if you worship the garden gnome out in front of your house and that makes you good for you, man. I am so happy for you because that brings you joy. Right on, man. Keep at it. But I'm going to ask you a handful of questions. Why? Because I'm curious.
Absolutely. It's the same reason I'm in the kind of position that. I've got to be careful what I say about this because it's kind of links into what I'm working on at the moment. But
I was going to say, I thought maybe you're going to edit yourself. I'm like, come on, bro.
No, I'm not going to. No, full disclosure. But then if there's anything in there that I'm like, I probably can't include that because I'm still doing paperwork for.
Cool.
So me and my friend who filmed with a kind of uber evangelical church in Oklahoma, proper Puritan, like kind of almost Amish looking. I thought they were Amish. It was why I went to talk to them at the time. So I was at the University of Oklahoma, and they were protesting. They were kind of basically preaching or whatever on it's called the South Oval, in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Where like the kind of campus, and they invited us to spend Good Friday with them, like for Easter, and sitting on a service and stuff like that. And it was all very, kind of strange or whatever. And everyone's in these kind of Amish wear, and I'm wearing like a Krusty Burger, like Simpsons top. So I kind of stick out. And I always kind of go into these things. Obviously, the thing is with them is that they don't believe in kind of modern medicine and stuff like that. So it's all kind of dangerous. And I wanted to question it and pull them up on it. But when we drove there, we're driving in the car with these 2 members of the church, and they're grilling us kind of about, or grilling me about my beliefs. They go, "What do you believe?" I was like, "Oh, I don't really believe anything. You know, I'm like an ultra agnostic. Like I couldn't really care less what I believe." And you know, she's spouting off about whatever, and then we get out the car, and she pulls me aside. She puts her hand on my shoulder. She goes, "I hope this car journey has saved you." And then that's where we have to go in the film about stuff. And it wasn't caught on camera because my cameraman got out the other side because we were like in. And this woman's like, they were so media trained all the way through. Like they were so ready for our arrival, and then like as soon as the camera wasn't there, it was like,
oh yeah.
And then she meant it as well, like proper. There was almost emotion in her eyes of like she hoped the 40-minute car drive that we had like converted me. I guess I should see that as a compliment because she doesn't want to see me go to hell.
Well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's, dude, that I have so many of those types of stories because they find out that I'm with you. And what I think is, you know, obviously we're built of energy, right? And energy you can't destroy. It's got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy that's running you and I is billions of years old. It just moves on to something else. That's all. And that's what I believe in. But when somebody, like you said, you know, they're so well trained and they just know exactly when to say something and when not to say it. And you're just like, huh, what? What'd she just say? And that's what they want from you. That's exactly.
As a journalist as well.
What's that?
It makes it difficult as a journalist to try and, there's a fantastic documentary by a documentary maker called Louis Theroux, who's my absolute idol in terms of the reason I got into this career path. And he did a documentary on Scientology. And the documentary is like it's a feature film, and it's a film about not being able to make a film because he can't get access to Scientology in the slightest. So what they do, with an ex-Scientologist, they cast basically loads of wannabe actors in LA to reenact like real life scenes that this fella accounts, like the former Scientologist. But because they're doing it, Scientology gets a wind and basically tracks them down and follows them around. Whilst the documentary's happening, and it's a phenomenal piece of journalism. So then when I was trying to figure out how to do this kind of documentary, and again it's in progress at the moment, so I'm being careful kind of what
that's great.
But like I was almost trying to, because obviously I don't want to turn it into a kind of snuff piece of this group who were very hospitable to me, just because I don't believe them. It doesn't mean that I should slag them off or whatever. You know, my opinion shouldn't come into it in the slightest. But also I was thinking about trying to work it so it was like you know, almost a documentary on people, on not being able to get answers out of people, I guess, because we walked in and all of the children were lined up and they all knew my name, and I turned into the congregation. All of the congregation had turned around and looked at me coming in with all beaming smiles. And it's like, oh, we've left a bench for you back here, Harry, you sit here, your cameraman can just like stick around the back or whatever. And it was they were so ready, even from the little children.
I'll provide some background music.
But it's almost like a kind of feeling of kindness thing as well, because they're so hospitable, and it's so, you know, we had nachos with them later on in the day. Like,
yeah, but the thing is though, when they're that hospitable, doesn't it creep you out a little bit?
Absolutely. I think it's, but then it's also a kind of thing of, again, I'd been in Oklahoma for maybe 7 months at that time. The Southern hospitality thing was a big, kind of culture shock almost. And everyone's lovely in the part of the country that I'm in. In the UK, there's a kind of stereotype if you're further down south. I mean, like, you know, people, you know, you can't have a conversation with any stranger or anything. Whereas, like, we had people stop in the street because they heard our accents and would offer to take us to the shops and stuff like that. So then it's hard to kind of distinguish whether what is kind of, you know, uber religious kind of conversion and what is, I mean, like, this wasn't filmed or anything, but afterwards, a couple of weeks after, and we were leaving the country, so we couldn't do it. I got a text and we were offered to basically go down to a retreat in Texas. And I mean, I can't drive. I'm epileptic, so I don't have a driver's license. And my friend can't drive. And so they were going to pick us up and take us down there. We were going to stay there for the weekend, and then they were going to drive us back.
Fuck that, dude. Fuck that, dude.
And I spoke to a good friend of mine who grew up in the Mormon church, and she was like, "Oh, that's like if there was anything like Mormonism, that's a conversion thing. They were going to keep you there until you believed what they believe."
100%. Especially if you depend on them to drive you.
Exactly. It wasn't a good idea,
dude. So I can see this story panning out, and it doesn't end well for you. But this is what I just went through my mind. So you decide to go because you're curious and you're doing your thing and you want to check it out, and you're like, oh, nowadays most people are safe, or majority of people, and so you go down there and they start doing their thing, and you're like, nah, fuck this, man, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we're not going to drive you until next Tuesday. They start doing their thing and they're like, fuck it. You stick your thumb in the wind and you get picked up by some dude and he's a serial killer. See,
it's a short horror film waiting to happen.
100%, dude. That's how every B-rated horror movie starts. and if they stopped, now wait a minute, if they stopped before they got to their compound and it was a gas station with a creepy old man that showed up out of nowhere and is like, spits his chewing tobacco and's like, where are y'all going? You'd be like, oh, dude, I gotta get out of here, because that's a horror movie, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, we drove down to Texas at points, like, with people, and like the drive is so dull.
Oh,
so
yeah. Nothing to look at
of them singing like happy clappy Jesus songs and us going into the middle of Texas where there's nothing at all. Everyone in the US, in that part of the US, I mean, like, there are some really beautiful kind of scenery stuff, but on the way to get there, everywhere just looks like the back of somewhere. Like
oh my God, dude, that's a great way to describe that. Everything looks like the back of somewhere.
Yeah, it makes no. One time we went. Someone asked what we were doing in the afternoon. I was like, oh, I was just going to go for a walk. And they were like, what do you mean? Like, where to? It was like, just around, just like see, like, I don't know, more of the kind of uni campus. And they were like, but what, do you want us to drive you? It's like, no, I'm just gonna walk in for the sake of walking. Like, it's quite, like, but why? But then we did, and it was like, when you get past the uni campus, there's just like fuck all.
Well, so wait a minute here. Speaking of documentaries, and you're in the UK, my wife just finished watching Harry and Meghan. So let me preempt this. I watch a little bit of it, and I had a video and photo production company, right? So, like, we were watching Ozarks last night, and they were in the cab of a Suburban driving, and the camera was in the back seat facing forward. I was like, God damn! Look, the gear selectors in drive. Come on, man! At least put it down. So anyway, what is your? Let me ask you this first. What's your opinion of the royal family? Okay, that's enough said.
I mean, I don't, like, as again, it's a very political thing here, and it's something you could say a lot easier before the Queen died, and then everyone got almost like weirdly touchy. But I greatly dislike the idea of a royal family. I don't think that anyone could be born, and a lot of people in the part of the country that I'm from agree, mainly kind of the Liverpool area. It's not the idea that someone can be born and because of their bloodline are instantly better than everyone, and then they have to be kind of funded by taxes, is a weird thing. That being said, I also think as well that the way that the royal family treated Harry and Meghan was awful, but also, like, they don't get any sympathy from me. Like, they're minted. I don't really keep up with kind of any, bar the fact that, like, Harry's talking about how he lost his virginity to some old woman around the back of a pub or something, and then now that's like the number one thing going around.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
From his book. His book's like the weirdest thing.
I know what it came across my Audible, and I'm like, God, I'm about to go on vacation. Do I commit to that? And I'm like, man, there's got to be something else out there.
From what I've heard, he just talks about his dick like for chapters.
I don't want to hear about that. But so one thing I learned from the documentary, and you just you just touched on a little bit, was he said because of the taxes, that allows the press so much access to them. They have like this weird balance that the press is like, we basically fund you, so we get to take pictures of you and make up stories and bother you and chase you down and make you feel whatever.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the kind of UK tabloids are awful, and it, like, you know, almost like vultures when it comes to that. But the way it kind of works in kind of journalism ethics in the UK, basically there's a set of rules, but then, you know, a select few of them can be kind of waived, like ethically, if they're in the public interest. And I think the argument with the Royals is that everything is in the public interest that they do because we pay for it. I say I'm a student, so I don't pay taxes, but like, yeah.
But that's what Harry said in the documentary, right? Mm-hmm. So I've never been a fan of Meghan to begin with. I always thought Harry was pretty cool. It seemed like he was a more down to earth kind of dude. And then I watched this documentary, and I don't have sympathy for either one of them. I probably have more empathy for Harry being born into that.
Yeah.
And that would not be a good life, dude. I don't think that would be a good life. I figured
absolutely not.
No. And then for Meghan to come in and try to disrupt a how many 1,000-year-old monarchy or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I think the problem with it is that Meghan had no idea, being American, had no idea the vitriol that comes with having to deal with the British press as a royal. And it's something that obviously then she's then married into this fact. I mean, like, you know, when she joined, she had to get rid of all of her social media. She wasn't allowed to do certain stuff. She had to, you know, abide by certain by like certain rules and guidelines that the royal family have. When before that she was in like Suits and she was like an actor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I see the whole thing, because I kind of understand it of her coming into it and not, I guess, understand what's going on and disrupting. But at the same time, like I don't believe that you know, no matter how old it is, it shouldn't be there as a kind of institution.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get that. You know, I get that. But with these two specifically, come on, man, don't go in there and try to disrupt that. But on the other end of it, don't treat her like a fucking piece of shit either. Right? So to me, what I got out of the documentary, and of course, going back to what you were saying, you know, with directors and, hey, this is my opinion, right? Well, they funded the whole thing and they made the documentary. So of course it's going to be their opinion. But the other thing too is you got to give and take a little. You have to understand what you're walking into. Sure. Do you fully understand what you're walking into? There's probably no way to fully understand that. Right? Because that, like you said, the press is just, I don't know how you deal with that. You know, I watched a documentary with Michael Jordan and they showed him with all the press, and I'm like, I'd lose it. I wouldn't be able to have that. But on the other side, they probably didn't treat her very well either.
They treated her awfully. I mean, like, so
I'm right down the middle with it.
Yeah. So obviously we have Kate Middleton, who
who's Kate Middleton?
Is Princess Kate, I guess, Prince William's.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Wife. Is beloved by the press, absolutely beloved. And then, I mean, Meghan comes into it on a large part outside looking in, I guess, allegedly, because you can't really accuse everyone, but it's just like it comes across as kind of like racism that or certainly, you know, this kind of foreigners come in and then she just gets jumped on. I mean, like if you ever go on like the Mail online, the comments on the Daily Mail online is toxic, where people will talk about how beautiful Kate is, and then in the same way, it's like, well, you know, Mars better looking than that horrible witch Meghan, and it's like, and it's from this kind of weird old guard where, you know, if you ask anyone over the age of 80, they probably don't like Meghan. You know, 3 guesses as to why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Of course.
It's like the amount of money that they've got to go out. Like I'm not like losing sleep at night, but at the same time, you know, if I have to fall on any one side of it, which I don't really, but like the way she was treated. I mean, even like in the royal family, there was allegations made towards other members of the royal family, that someone in the royal family asked what color the baby was going to be when Harry had when Harry and Meghan had their baby. It's that kind of age old.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? I imagine that they're carrying. I mean, the Queen was what, 70 something?
No, 96.
96. So she was in power for power, whatever you want to call it. She held that position. She held that position for 70 something years, right? Because she came in real young, and she was probably the people that taught her that position. Okay, so now we're back into the early 1900s, and then you go back into the people that taught that position. You know, now you're in the middle of the 1800s, and that shit is not anywhere close to where we are now, right? So I imagine the way she was taught, and you know, she was like 16 or something when she became queen. She was like real young, right?
As she in her 20s, but yeah, very young.
Just real young, right? So look at you, you're talking about the stuff that affected you when you were 16. Imagine having that kind of institution around you 24/7. Of course, that's what you're going to do, because you can't buck it. And then now you're like, I was told my whole life, you know, my dad said, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Well, this is what I'm supposed to do. I was born into it. It's just a crazy system.
The whole idea of it is just so mental. Like the idea that there is a, you know, and I mean, like if you know, King Charles had a sleepover, he'd eradicate like homelessness in Liverpool, like if he wanted to. The amount of spare bedrooms that they have in Buckingham Palace that they regularly repair with taxpayer money and stuff like that, that's just empty. It's this pomp. I mean, like when it was the Queen's funeral, the level of pomp and ceremony, it was like Christmas Day on the day of the funeral, because everywhere was closed.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, I work with a load of people from Liverpool who aren't fans of the royal family. In work, we watched it, like, because it was just like a historical thing.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? You know, the amount of money that went into it, people queued up to, you know, see the coffin, which, you know, she probably wasn't even in there.
I was just going to say,
you wouldn't put the body of the Queen on public. I mean, like, you know, people have said that she wasn't, she probably wasn't in there.
I don't doubt that. We saw a snapshot of it, and I turned and looked at my wife, and I go, "There's just a 140-pound sandbag in that bitch. She ain't in there." Because then if something happened and somebody hates the monarchy and comes over and turns over the cart, there's no way that they're going to let that body fly out on the street.
It would make, but I mean, people still queued up for it. There was queues for miles and miles and miles.
That's cute. That's crazy, dude.
For like 24 hours, people queued.
I don't know. Me personally, I don't know anybody that I would pay that much. I didn't even pay that much respect for my mom. And I love my mom more than the world, dude, when she passed away, right? But it's crazy because the way they attach it, it's like here in the United States when they attach their identity to a celebrity. It's basically the same thing, right?
Because you guys, it's a kind of level of celebrity, isn't it?
Yeah, you guys treat the royal family like celebrities.
And the thing is with the US as well, what I found about being there is that the US, there's almost more of a kind of cult around it in the US of the royal family than there is in the. I mean, obviously there's some kind of proper zealous people in the UK, but like, oh my god, people are obsessed with the royal family. And like, I had so many messages when the Queen died about people from the Americans that I'm friends with from being out there. You know, like I had died. Like
Yeah,
they were,
man.
you know,
Oh wow,
I feel like I'm mourning for you, and I'm like,
what?
I didn't know her.
Yeah, it's like, how you feeling, man? You holding up all right? You're like, for what? What happened? What happened? The Queen died. Oh,
I can tell you though, if I was there, if I was in Oklahoma doing lessons, whatever, when the Queen died, I would have absolutely milked it. I would have gone, oh no, it's so sad. Can I go home, please?
oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Are you okay? I think I'll, I think I'll hold up. I might need a couple of
dude, if you were in the US when that happened, with your accent and that going on, you could have got any woman in the country, in the county, go to a bar and be watching, be like, can we turn this on? It's so sad. And they'd be like, oh my God. I would have milked the fuck out of that too, man. Shit.
Yeah, I think my girlfriend would have been fuming with me if I tried to that. Yeah, no, that kind of. I mean, when I was out there, everyone kind of asked me about what I thought about Princess Diana and all sorts, and I was like, I don't really care.
Good for you.
She died before I was born.
well, the thing is too, and we talk about it. My brother and I talk about it as well, like with the president and the politics around here.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I address it is being a fan or expecting a politician to love you is the same as, the dancer at the Peeler Bar on Tuesday afternoon. They're just there as long as they can get something from you. And as soon as your quote unquote well runs dry, gone, dude. You ain't nothing. Mm. And for people to attach their identity to that kind of stuff, I don't know enough about it because, like, I don't want to assume they feel a certain way or they act a certain way. I don't know, but I just know that a ton of people attach their identity to that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, like what makes you, like with the Queen, with our situation here, why do you follow that so much? And why does it burn so much of your energy? I can kind of see, I just thought of this. Maybe it's escapism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. Like watching
your head into. It's
like watching sports. Same type of thing. I'll have to mull that around a little bit.
It's also a kind of like what we were talking about before. I mean, people finding that maybe even feeling outcasted for their views or whatever, or their kind of strong views on it, then feeling like they've got a weird sense of community in the middle of it.
Yep, I can see that. And then,
yeah.
And then being online, it just amplifies that, right? So now, huh?
Yeah, no, especially with the kind of political element.
Yeah, so now you can get online and be in this echo chamber, and now you feel all good about yourself. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, all right. See, look, we get to the bottom of something. It's always about good conversation, man. But we could sit here and I could pick there's so much other shit I want to talk to you about, dude, but I'll have you back. You're always welcome. So
thank you.
We got to do it again. I had no idea, which I'm a big fan of. I had no idea what direction we were going to go. and a lot of times what I tell people is, think about it as I come sit next to you at the airport and then we just start BSing. Mm-hmm. It's not it's not an interview, it's a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Holler, I'm going to give you over to Mike here for a second. Holler, tell everybody where to find you. And
so my Twitter's Rob O'Harry, ROBBOHARRY. I mean, mainly, if anyone could go watch my documentary, The Real Black Sabbath, free to watch on YouTube about me spending time with a Hebrew Israelite, kind of, their class as a hate group. So they're like kind of black separatist kind of group. Maybe if I'm on next time, we can talk about
Oh yeah,
that whole kind of bag of worms. But
yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my notes, going, "Man, I didn't even get past the first posting note."
That's good though, because then it's not forced, is it?
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I like about it. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry, man, didn't interrupt you. So,
No.
is that on your regular YouTube? I'll put that on the
Yes.
link in the show notes. Okay.
Yeah, the real Black Sabbath. So like the band, but the real in front of it.
Nice. And then Instagram.
Same ROBBOHARRY.
Okay.
And that's the kind of all. Twitter's where you'll find me, I guess, most.
And now is if people are watching on YouTube, and if you're not, get over and fucking subscribe. But if your website, is that the best place to like get everything?
So a lot of my articles, I mean, like I do a lot of writing, I guess, for kind of newspapers and stuff. So a lot of it kind of gets spread out. That was always my kind of old portfolio. But anytime I do something personally, that gets kind of uploaded on there. But yeah, the Twitter is probably the best place to find me. Like to kind of see what's going on. All my YouTube is, I mean, if you type in the real Black Sabbath on YouTube, it'll come up with the documentary. But the account's called All Out Attack.
Awesome.
Harry Robinson. Yeah.
Sweet, dude. All right, dude. We're gonna get out of here. Damn good time, bud.
Thank you so much, Walt. It's been a pleasure.
All right, bud. Hang on a second.
Man, I told you this guy had some great stories. Jump in the show notes. All the links you need to know about Harry are there, and I bet you he would love to speak with you. Reach out to him. All right, man, I'm going to get you out of here because I know you got shit to do. But don't forget, liverishi.com. Use the code word table50. Get 50% off all your CBD product needs. And, of course, check out my website, BRawPodcast.com. And I'm hailing you from where they're going to be filming most of the new Joker movie, New Jersey. All right, man. Don't act cool. Be cool. Till next time.